being accommodating and being agreeable are one and the same. And you know what else falls under the same category? Being a yes person. Now, when you call it being accommodating, it sounds noble and virtuous. On the other hand, when you call it being a yes person, it sounds very close to being an insult. The fact is that it is meant to be an insult. No one likes a person who can only ever say yes. That includes the people they're saying yes to. But this isn't about what others think. It's about what you should think of yourself when you don on the yes person's hat. In not so many words, it's not a good look on you or anyone else for that matter. To put it more bluntly, it's what's destroying your life, and odds are you probably haven't even recognized it yet. You will today though. At the end of this video, not only will you be able to recognize a pattern within yourself that you are oblivious to, but you'll also learn how to move past the life of being a yes person. So stick around. Is it wrong to be reliable? The only time a yes person would become defensive is when you tell them that they're being a little too agreeable, to the point that it's becoming unbearable. That's the only time, ironically enough, that they won't agree with you. That's when they'll tell you, no, you're wrong. The reason's twofold. 1. No one likes to be criticized, not even a yes person. And 2, they don't see it as an issue. If anything, they'll flip the switch on you, wondering why you have a problem with them being reliable. Yes, that's actually how they see it. They think that they're reliable, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're only half right, because there really isn't anything wrong with being reliable. It's the fact that they're delusional enough to think that they're reliable is the issue. Before we move on further, we have to explain what a yes person is, and that's how we'll be able to differentiate between that and a person who's simply reliable. A yes person is someone who's incapable of feeling a sense of individuality or autonomy. They don't have complete control over their feelings and their wants. Maybe this indecisiveness bothered them about themselves for a while, but that time is long since passed. Now they think that they've escaped the indecisiveness and are able to make decisions by themselves. Have they really, though? You see, all they did was mask one personality trait with another. They used to be indecisive before, and now they're just overly agreeable. At the root of it, they still can't take ownership of their own decisions, much less make them for themselves. At a much deeper level, the need to be agreeable stems from childhood experiences where it was just easier to say yes to everything. This could be because of a need to seem likable or a desire to please everyone else. In any case, it's not something that's shared with the masses. It's something that's limited to only a select few people, and it's by no means something to brag about. While you should look at someone who's a yes person with a lot of empathy, because at the end of the day, they have a valid enough reason to be agreeable, it's not like they don't need help. The empathy should also extend to wanting to help them regain their individuality. But that's what makes a person a yes person. Now we have to talk about how it's not the same as being reliable and why it's ruining your life. If you're here watching this video and feeling like everything resonates with you, then you're the yes person. Who would you consider to be a reliable employee? It's not a yes person. We'll get that out of the way right now. It's actually the employee who knows what to do and when to do it. You see, anyone can agree with the overall majority, and anyone can relay information from the boss. Does this make them reliable or just agreeable? See, that's the key difference right there. An agreeable employee will be one who's essentially used as a patsy in some cases where someone needs a person who's incapable of saying no. So while you are being relied upon, it's not because they need you for any particular skill set. It's an inherently selfish reason. On the other hand, if they need someone with enough individuality to get the job done by themselves and make use of information they know or whatever is relayed to them, then they're reliable. Think of it this way. A reliable person can make a decision, but an agreeable person cannot. At work, you might say yes to taking on extra responsibilities, hoping it will earn the favor of your boss. In personal relationships, you might agree to do things you don't want to do, fearing rejection or conflict. This constant approval-seeking behavior becomes a cycle that's difficult to break. Prioritize your mental health. One of the most significant impacts of being a yes person is the mental and emotional strain it places on you. When you consistently say yes to others, you're often saying no only to yourself. Your time, energy, and needs get pushed to the back burner. One of the direct consequences of always saying yes is overwhelming stress. Every new commitment piles onto an already full plate, leading to a situation where there's simply too much to manage. At first, this might just feel like an increase in stress, but over time, it can lead to burnout, a state where you feel mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted. When you're constantly overcommitted, it becomes impossible to truly rest or recharge, as there's always another task to complete or a favor to fulfill. The pressure of living up to the expectations of others can also breed intense anxiety. When you consistently worry about whether you're doing enough or meeting everyone's needs, it creates a never-ending cycle of self-doubt. Worse, while trying to appease others, you might start to build resentment. You might feel frustrated that you're constantly sacrificing your well-being for others, but you're stuck in a cycle of compliance that feels impossible to break. Perhaps the most devastating consequence of being a yes person is the gradual erosion of your sense of self. When you spend so much time prioritizing the desires of others, you can lose touch with your own preferences, interests, and even values. Over time, this can lead to a feeling of disconnection from yourself, as if you're living someone else's life rather than your own. The impact on relationships. While being agreeable might seem like a way to foster positive relationships, it can often have the opposite effect. When you habitually say yes to everything, people may view you as agreeable, but they may also come to see you as someone without firm boundaries or opinions. This dynamic can lead to relationships that lack depth and authenticity. Your friends, family, and coworkers may assume that you're always available, always okay with what's happening, and never in need of support or understanding. Over time, this can make you feel invisible and unheard within your relationships, as others don't realize your true feelings. Being a yes person can lead to one-sided or imbalanced relationships where you're always the giver and others are the takers. In these relationships, you may find yourself constantly doing favors or taking on extra responsibilities, while your needs and boundaries are disregarded. This dynamic can lead to resentment and frustration as you start to feel exploited or unappreciated. Yet breaking out of this pattern can be difficult, especially when you're afraid that asserting your needs will lead to conflict or rejection. Paradoxically, saying yes to avoid conflict can sometimes create even more conflict down the line. If you're consistently agreeing to things you don't actually want to do, it's likely that you'll eventually reach a breaking point. When this happens, the resulting confrontation can be much more intense than if you'd set boundaries from the start. Others may feel blindsided by your sudden frustration, as they were never aware that there was an issue in the first place. The power of no. The antidote to the destructive cycle of people-pleasing is learning to say no. While this may seem simple in theory, it can be incredibly challenging in practice, especially for those who are accustomed to being agreeable. Learning to say no is about more than just rejecting requests. It's about setting healthy boundaries that protect your time, energy, and well-being. When you establish clear boundaries, you're sending a message to yourself and others that your needs matter. While this might initially feel uncomfortable, over time, it leads to healthier, more balanced relationships where your needs and preferences are respected. Saying no also allows you to prioritize your own goals and interests. Instead of spending all your time fulfilling the expectations of others, you can focus on activities that bring you joy, satisfaction, and growth. This doesn't mean being selfish or inconsiderate. It means recognizing that your well-being is just as important as anyone else's. Ironically, learning to say no can actually lead to greater respect from others. When you're clear about your boundaries and priorities, people are more likely to view you as confident, self-assured, and dependable. They'll know that when you do say yes, it's because you genuinely want to, not because you felt obligated or afraid to decline. Breaking free from the yes person mentality requires both self-awareness and practical strategies. Here are a few steps to help you get started. Before agreeing to any request, take a moment to ask yourself why you're inclined to say yes. Are you genuinely interested, or are you doing it out of fear, guilt, or obligation? By identifying your motives, you can make more intentional choices. If saying no feels daunting, start by practicing in small, low-stakes situations. Gradually build your confidence by setting boundaries in more significant areas of your life. To make it easier to say no, It helps to have a clear understanding of your own priorities. When you're focused on your personal goals, it's easier to recognize when something isn't worth your time or energy. Saying no doesn't have to be harsh or confrontational. You can communicate your boundaries in a way that's both respectful and firm. For example, "I would love to help, but I'm currently focused on other commitments," is a clear, polite way to decline. Breaking free from being a yes person takes practice. But by being more intentional and setting boundaries, you can build healthier, more fulfilling relationships and live a life that honors your own needs. Let us know what's helped you escape being a yes person in the comments down below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more.